Good evening, all. Ira Epstein with your financial market wrap-up for this Monday, the 10th of January, 2022, 6:50 p.m. You know, if you're one of my paid subscribers, you know, in the mornings I start off my paid with one version is just a futures video in the morning. I record about 5:40. I can tell you this morning, over and over, I was saying you got to be covering shorts. You're at the lower Bollinger Band all over the board today. Then in the Spider ETF video, which today began about 9:10 in the morning. There were just too many reports at 9 o'clock. I had to then change the daily numbers. I use window envelopes, and they change on charts if you get certain moves. There were quite a bit of them that I had to change. Markets don't always hit a Bollinger Band. They will hit window envelopes often. So you got to learn to use them in combination. It's a parallel number to the 18-day average of closes in a neat study. And I have my own way, as usual, of working with those numbers. But what I do think is we have to look at the events of the week. Tomorrow, Fed Chair Powell is up for his nomination, so he'll be in front of the Senate. You know he's going to get drilled. Elizabeth Warren, who thinks he's dangerous, will have her shot at him again. I do think there was a mistake on the Fed in terms of allowing Fed members, and I don't know what degree we'll call a Fed member. They can decide that, to trade their stocks. I think certainly on voting members that are there running the banks but have a vote in monetary policy, because that does rotate, at a minimum, none of those people should be allowed to trade their own stocks. The money, just like the president's, has to go into a blind trust. You don't want them making the policy decision. What's the difference between that and insider trading? That's my opinion. All right, and that's just my opinion. So I understood Vice Chair Clarita's resignation. I think it should have been a lot earlier. He has only 2 weeks left to run anyway, so it's symbolic more than anything. That's not to say he wasn't a good vice chair. Thumbs up. He was a very good vice chair, but I don't like that policy. Okay, so this is next about the inflation data this week. The market is building in that the inflation data we're about to get, I think it's Wednesday, could be a 40-year high. And that is the reason bonds and notes have been on a tear to the downside in the market. They're overdone, in my opinion, but they're on a tear to it. What if they don't get that number? What if it came out, let's say, instead of a 7% gain, a 5%? I'm just making it up. I wonder what the impact would be. In any case, when you look at an area chart of the S&P from the high, we've come off pretty good. You were up here at 47.58.50, and now you're back to nearly 100 points lower, at 90 lower actually, around 46.67.75. Okay. When we come to a daily chart, you've gone from approximately the 4,800 level back under 4,600. So we've had a neat little correction here. The trend is not there. There is no trend. In this whole pattern, you've gone from a higher high, immediately created day after a lower low, that's not a trend, and plunged with a vertical price drop. Vertical being defined as every day's got a lower than the prior day, and you had a sharp break out of it. Okay. When you take a look at moving averages, you're under the 18-day moving average of closes. I call that MAC. I define bias in a market of current price in relation to that. When the market is under the 18-day, I have a bearish bias, and if my swing lines were trending down, which they're not, I'd be looking for short sale. When they're not trending, and you do that, I have the bias down and no trend. I then put on the Bollinger Bands, and voila, today, I can't believe what happened. This is why I was so excited this morning, and I was excited. I mean, I was jumping up and down. This is the zone. I don't care if you hit the price or not, very frankly. As it turned out, it came in later, and you hit the lows, and you spent the rest of the day rallying back. Okay, first time you hit a Bollinger Band, if you take my course, and that is the key, I'm not going to teach it to you here, got to learn how to work with it. You have a market with momentum down, not embedded. I think the pros went neutral today. In the NASDAQ, I think the pros went neutral. Well, now watch, the low here is 15,510. You're nowhere near that lower Bollinger Band. You hit that band today. Do you disagree? That was the short cover day, and this is where you're at now. Same thing. You're not embedded. Trend down in this one. This was the first cover zone, right and through here. This was absolute, got to be gone, the way I teach charting. In the Dow, you never got down here. The Dow hit the upper bands to come out of the longs. Then you broke through these lows, so you broke the pattern. You have a higher high, lower low. You lost the embedded reading, which when that occurs, calls for you to go back to the 18-day average of closes and rebuild ideally at that number. And it seems to me that's what it's trying to do right now. In the Russell, today was the day to cover, in my opinion, all shorts. Right down to the lower Bollinger Band. Let's get to that. Come on, one more day. Here we go. 21.25.90. The lower band, 21.30.95. So long, goodbye, thank you. And that's what you do with a trade like that. If you were short on that break. I did not tell my clients to be short on that break. I don't mind telling you that. I won't tell you all the trades I make. There will be wrong ones too. But I don't tell you all the winners or all the losers. You know, you can subscribe $7.95 for 30 days. I think you can afford it. VIX cash. Okay, so what did we talk about last week? Lost the embedded reading. Therefore, the first challenge, get back to these numbers. Now, if the market's going to do anything from there, it should make a run to the upper Bollinger Band, and that's exactly what it did. So where the market was fighting was right at these averages. If it breaks down, support. If it rallies up, resistance, watch. What do you do the first time you hit the upper band? So long, thank you, and what else? I wrote and told my clients that I thought the pros would write calls. At 22.34 when it hit it, I don't know the exact option they're going to trade to get back to the 18-day average. Not a bad little play. They look pretty darn good. In the 30-year bond, all I'm looking for is the market to move to the right-hand side. It is very rare that you have 5 days in a row where you close under a Bollinger Band. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 is really pushing the envelope. 5 is real difficult. 6 is that rarefied territory. You get a few of these in a year, and I'm not talking in any one commodity. I'm talking a few in the whole spectrum. And you had 5. I'm not surprised you rallied. Now you're getting more. I think the pros are waiting to sell the market short again. When you had the bearish crossover of the 18, getting under the 100 right here, that was the kiss of death, and the market did what it had to. But now there's stiff resistance on rallies all the way up there, and you have an embedded reading. In the 10-year note, if you take a look at this, you finished at 128.04 and a half. The Bollinger Band, 128.02. You had 5 days in a row down. I mean, just how these things seem to work. You're embedded. Again, I think you're going to see the pros wanting to sell hard rallies in the market if they can get them. In the dollar index, even with interest rates soaring, you throw out a new sell signal. Now, to break that signal, you have to take out 96.40. If the market breaks down, the lower Bollinger Band or thereabouts should be the profit area for traders. The eurocurrency is caught in the sideways action and has an upside bias. Can it get itself up to the 113.97 level is the question. It's not a trade I'm in love with, but I do think the pros went long today. In the British pound, the trend is still up, fully embedded. Now, the health secretary in the UK came out today and said that they are preparing, the health department there, for the end of the pandemic and the beginning of endemic. It's a very different thing. Endemic is nowhere near as contagious a time as the pandemic time is, and we know that this Omicron is the most contagious COVID we've ever seen. We don't know if other variants will be worse, but right now, many think because it became the dominant strain, as long as it stays the dominant strain, it stops those other variants from taking over. Very important, and that's why they're looking into that. I wish I knew. I didn't know anything about this 2 years ago. Suddenly, I know medicine. It's beyond me. And I'm no doctor, but I do read, and I read a lot. In Bitcoin, lower highs, lower lows, still bearish as can be. You don't want to be short under a Bollinger Band. This is the area to be covering. The market today, for the first time, cracked $40,000. I don't know in how long, but it was just $70,000 in November. Look at how much that market broke on you. It's rather dramatic. The Brent versus WTI, well, you can see the market is cracking, so now the energy prices couldn't let go a bit here. I'd be a bit cautious. You're acting like you might lose that embedded reading. You haven't lost it yet. I do think the pros will buy this break until that red line gets under 79. They'll stop buying, and if it closes under 79, I think they'll call it a day. I think the same thing's going to happen tonight in WTI. It's the play there. It's not an uptrend. You have a lower low, higher high, but the embedded reading takes precedent over everything. In the heating oil, well, look at it in a good part of the U.S. Today's high in Chicago, I think it was 17. We're about 12 right now. This is without wind chill. We'll go under 0 tonight. And we've had day after day of this extreme cold. We had our first snowfall in 280 or 90 days last week. And it's still on the ground because it stayed so cold. It's pretty. Higher low, higher high on pullbacks. I think the pros will still be buying that market. And in nat gas, you closed at the top part of the day's range today on a breakout, or did you? Not really. You closed higher, not in the top quadrant. This was another test of the upper Bollinger Band that may be doomed to failure. Be careful. You never want to buy it, the way I teach charting at least, an upper Bollinger Band. I'll never have you do that or buy one over it. I teach you all the reasons to not do that. And speaking of that, the enhanced Bollinger Band course and all that, take a look at this, spend a little time, and learn the way I trade Bollinger Bands. Welcome. I'm Ira Epstein, and I'm here to talk about my enhanced Bollinger Band course. Now, many of you have taken my regular charting course, and if not, you might think you know something about Bollinger Bands. As you know, Bollinger Bands are an algorithm designed to keep the market trading within it 95% of the time, and on a chart, it will offer on the top part resistance, on the bottom support, and the idea is the market will travel within them. We know that sometimes it latches onto that band, goes up or goes down. Well, how do you play with that? Can you pyramid the positions off that type of thinking? Well, I've applied all 3 of these into 13 different videos that teach you my concept of it. And from that concept, you're able to work with weekly charts and or daily charts. The 13 videos, each about 7 minutes long. The idea here is not to put you in school forever, but to teach. Now, if you haven't tried my complete futures research, I throw that in as well. Whether you've tried this or not, I think it's worth taking a look at. I think you're going to learn something from there. That research, by the way, covers twice daily market updates for you and access to what I call window envelope numbers, which I think are very important when looking at these Bollinger Bands. The next part is a trial to our charting software so you can make your charts look the same way that mine do. It's that simple. Where do you go with it and how do you get all this? It's simple. You go to our website, www.iraepstein.com. If you go to the word education, everything you need is answered there. You can also call my staff. They'll be happy to help you get set up. I'm Ira Epstein, on the road to your education.